All right, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. We will start, as we always do, with our prayer for NCH City Council, followed by a pledge of allegiance. If everyone will please stand. God our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all the people who live in our city. Give all the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all our decisions. Bless us all to do the very best we can. With your help and guidance, we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Hedger. Could you please call the roll?
Dukestein.
Present.
DeWald.
Here.
Underwood.
Here.
Alexander.
Present.
Zorb.
Here.
Blythe.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. You have tonight's agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Motion by Ms. Underwood to accept tonight's agenda. Need a second?
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I'll second.
Motion from Ms. Underwood, second by Ms. Anderson to adopt the agenda for tonight. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein.
Yes.
DeWald.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Zorb.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. You also have the meeting minutes from Monday, May 2nd. I did notice in new business my name was misspelled once. It hurt. The second time.
Apologies.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood.
on page 3, there's a misspelling, infrastructure. I think that's how we spell infrastructure.
Where at? Ms. Underwood pointed out that transit infrastructure, the first line under the line at the top of the page, page 3.
I will make a correction.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald.
I'd like to request that even though these are just grammar errors, I do not care to get another copy of the minutes. I'll make corrections on my own, because I generally ask for a hard copy.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I will make a motion that we adopt the minutes as presented, as those are only typographical errors.
Yes, ma'am. Motion for Ms. Zorb to adopt the 5-2 meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. DeWald. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. DeWald to adopt the 5-2 meeting minutes. Please call the roll, sir.
Dukestein.
Yes.
DeWald.
Yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Zorb.
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. All right, do we have any communication, Mr. Hedger?
Yes, thank you. I did provide the April Mayor's Court. That was all the communication I had.
Thank you, sir. Time for council committees, starting with City Community Development and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I canceled our last meeting, our meeting for this month of May. Our next meeting will be June 13th at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Next, Budget and Finance.
I'm getting there. Sorry, I was looking for my meeting agenda. Okay, we had a public hearing. No one officially showed up, but we moved forward. We had the status of the budget report. We talked about the March report, an Ohio checkbook, the recreational, we took the recreational operational budget off the calendar. We talked about staff vacancy, the building renovations, which was a big shift for us. Then we adjourned, and our meeting was held Monday, May 9th from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. We adjourned at 9:13, I believe. And our next meeting is
I'm guessing June 13th at 7:30.
June 13th at 7:30.
Thank you, Ms. Dukestein. Rules and Public Policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. We haven't met since we met on April 25th. Our next meeting will be May 23rd at 6:30.
Thank you. And Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. President. We haven't met since we met on April 25th. Our next meeting will be May 23rd at 7:30.
Thank you. All right, any ad hoc reports?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald.
this is a report from the OKI committee meeting that was held May 12th. They were quite busy, so they passed a resolution regarding the urbanized area for transportation for seniors and those with disabilities where transportation is not available. They also passed a legislation for the consultant for the OKI freight plan. It was to execute the lead firm. And then also they worked on the clean air program. That was also passed, and I'm not quite sure how they targeted it down. Just basically do your share for the clean air. They also did a ride share program legislation. There was a transportation improvement program for the years 2021 to 2024, and this is regarding the Brent Spence Bridge corridor. They did an Ohio water quality legislation where the water quality management planning activities were discussed. And then the last one was an Ohio water quality area-wide funding. And that's all we talked about. However, it was a quick meeting, too. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. DeWald. Any other ad hoc reports?
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
I have an update from the Intercommunity Cable Regulatory Commission, which is, we also know as ICRC, our video providers. I'll just hit the highlights. They have a new podcast room that anyone is welcome to go and use and talk about. It's a free speech kind of thing. You can talk about whatever you want, except for you cannot promote your personal business. It's not like a commercial type thing. It's not, but you can approach any subject you would like. You must be a resident of a community that uses ICRC to do this, so North College Hill residents would be able to use that, North College Hill businesses would be able to use that. The other thing that they have, they created what they call a fly kit now, which is a watered down truck in a box, so that they can do almost like a a rapid response to a city if they're called to film something in a hurry. They could get there in a hurry, and it's just almost like a quicker setup than what they typically provide. And I think there's the rest was just normal business, like budget reports and stuff like that.
Thank you, Ms. Zorb.
You're very welcome.
Any other ad hoc reports? Hearing no one, I will move on to the administrative reports. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a couple of things. First of all, I would like to mention Saturday, I was not able to attend because I had another event that had a funeral. It wasn't an event that I needed to attend. And the Tree City USA team planted the pawpaw trees in Veterans Park. And from the pictures that I saw, it looked like it was a great turnout. Looked really good. The trees look nice. So congratulations there. We're moving forward with our Tree City, and hopefully we can get some more trees planted. I have a couple of ideas in a couple of places where I would like to see some trees, but that's another day. Memorial Day Parade is next weekend, the 28th. I believe it kicks off at 11 o'clock at Rose's. I think we have about 20 plus people who have signed up to participate. So we're excited about that. We haven't had it in over 2 years. So, you know, getting the word out, but just a little bit, even making a fun event. Food Truck Friday, for whatever reason, did not happen this month. There were a couple things, but we look forward to having our next one on June 3rd. I know they're working on that, so we'll be back on June 3rd. Another thing that we decided to do, we talked about, we're planning to have a community yard sale. That means anyone in the community can have a yard sale at their home. You know, you clean out your house for spring and you find all these things, and it'll be free to our residents. Generally, you will have to, the first one is free, then $5 for the next one, and it goes up $5, but this will be free for the whole weekend. So that'll be June 25th and 26th throughout the community. I know we had mentioned, or it was put out that we're having the, we brought back the best yard. So we have 2 entries so far. So if you have any neighbors who like to keep their yard up nice and floral, I mean, I'm not a landscaper, so, you know, we just cut the grass and hang some plants. That's about it in my house, so I wouldn't even enter into the contest. So we want to try to get those out. We're going to give them yard signs. You're the winner. You're the winner. So if you know anybody, or if you yourselves want to participate, please do. Like I said, we have, the last I checked, there were 2 entries. And if you've noticed in the city, we have the new signs from ODOT, the safety signs, which I know the school district really appreciates. That's a fantastic grant, and kudos to us for having it. I did notice that for myself, I didn't realize I was going over 25. I won't say what I was going until I saw it. And the other great thing about one of the lights, the crosswalk, if you've noticed, they put in a couple with the crosswalks. It flashes, so that's neat. And I saw some kids, they actually stood there and waited. This was right on Hamilton, so I'm excited about those. And I had something else and then I forgot. So that'll be it for me. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
is the weekend of the yard sale the same weekend as the world's longest yard sale?
I'm not sure. It's not.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb.
so the first thing, the world's longest yard sale is the first weekend in August. And I checked that website today, and it is happening this year. Madam Mayor, do you know if, and maybe it's done, but I haven't seen it, do you know if there's going to be painted crosswalks by those?
I'm
Like
not
stripes on the
I'm not sure if
crosswalk?
that was part of the grant. I don't know. Mr. Mosby, do you know if that was in? Okay.
Awesome,
Mr.
thank you.
Mosby said there should be. he'll talk to them to make sure. And if I could mention, I'm open to changing the dates for, if we want to coincide with the world's longest. But my idea was not to necessarily take from them, because that's a fundraiser one that they do. I know people will still go there, but on that first weekend.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other questions? All right, we'll move to the city administrator's report. Good evening, Mr. Mosby.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. President. I would actually like to take today to yield my time to two representatives from Daylight Financial Advisors, Municipal Advisors, excuse me. So we have Mr. Day and Mr. Sarpong that are here, who are coming today to talk about bonds and to explain bonds. So I will yield my time to them. So gentlemen, if you would take the lectern.
Good evening. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
Great. Well, again, thank you all for giving us the opportunity today to come here and to present and introduce ourselves to you all. Again, my name is Samuel Sarpong, and I have with me here today Larry Day, and he is our managing partner. And we are municipal advisors from Jackson, Mississippi, and we work with Daylight Capital Advisors. And so what we do is we help cities pretty much do two things. We help them with their bonds and their debt management. And that means, one, let's say if the city has issued some bonds in the past and the interest rate is high, we try to help to save the city some money through a refinancing. And then the second thing, of course, if the city has different capital improvement projects that they would like to work on in the future, then we help them with that as well. And that could be anything as far as with the streets, roads, water, sewer. If there's anything as far as business development or districts that wanted to be improved, upgraded downtown, we help the city get the financing through bonds. And so today we're here to just introduce ourselves. I'm actually in the Ohio area this week because I'll actually be moving up to the area around this same time next year. So we just wanted to make the introduction and to introduce who we are, and just talk about bonds and why it's important for cities to take the opportunity to issue bonds. So before we get into that, I'd like to pass out these two documents I have, and I'll allow Larry the opportunity to get more into detail about those topics.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam, for that excellent introduction. Like he said, my name is Larry Day, and we are municipal advisors for municipalities. And what our goal here is today is just to explain very simply the process and to answer any questions concerning how the municipal bond process works. You might ask yourself, well, what is a municipal bond? How is that different from a loan? Well, a municipal bond is a loan. Just as if you were to take out a loan to purchase a house, that loan is called a mortgage. Well, when cities take out loans for capital improvement projects, those loans are called municipal bonds. The municipal bond process is something that happens all over the country. You have cities, counties, school districts, airports, all different types of municipal entities when they need to raise funds or when they need to borrow money for projects, they take out bonds. And they happen quite often. I think on average, there are about 12,000 issuance of bonds across the country every year. So we're here to guide you through the process, answer any questions if there may be about how bonds work. Now, we know that the city may be considering doing some infrastructure projects specifically to, I think it may be a community center, and that project has a cost, has a price tag to it. So the question is, how does the city plan on paying for that project to refurbish or to enhance the existing building that you have? Well, there are some considerations that you need to think about. First is paying for it out of pocket. You can just save the money, and once you get to a certain amount of money, you can just pay to do the project. What we're recommending is that you consider taking out a bond today where you borrow the funds and you pay it back over a certain amount of time with interest, and you can get your project done today. I like to use the analogy again concerning a house. When you decide to buy a house, you have options. You can save your money until you get enough money to buy a house, but it's so expensive, the best financial thing to do is to finance that through a loan and use that money to be able to buy a house. And what happens is you're able to get into a house today as opposed to waiting into getting into a house in the future when you don't know where prices are, how much it would cost in the future. So our job as municipal advisors is to hold your hand, guide you through the process. We make sure that you have, we make sure first that you consider how much you can borrow, because there are statutory limitations that are in place that speak to how much a city can borrow. You can't just go out and say, I want $100 million for a project. Statutorily, by law, you can't do that. There's a mathematical formula where they take your assessed valuation and take a percentage of that, and that determines how much you can borrow. We will look at that. So we'll tell you, hey, the city can borrow up to this amount. Second, knowing how much you can borrow and being able to afford to borrow something are two separate things. The question is, can you afford it? Well, you determine whether you can afford it by looking at the revenues that you bring into the city compared to your expenses. And if there's some room in there, along with any revenues you might get from the project, then there's some consideration on whether you can afford it. And we look at that. That's what you would hire us to do, to make sure that the city can comfortably afford issuing bonds for a particular project. And then last, what we do in the process is we determine the term to help you figure out how long does it take to pay this particular bond off, whether it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We work with we look at it to see what's most beneficial for the city to help you determine what is best as far as the term is concerned. We have been busy doing this type of work all across the country, specifically in the South. That's where we're from. But we're licensed to do business in all states. Sam and I have both passed our Series 50 exam that gives us the right to stand before you and be able to give you advice on the subject of municipal bonds. So I've talked long enough, but if there are any questions that you have, we would love to be able to answer the questions for you. But we're not here to sell you anything. We just want to let you know if you decide to move forward with this, we can help you in the process. I did such a good job, no questions?
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson.
I have a question, but it's kind of more for Mr. Mosby. So, since you kind of gave your time to these two very nice gentlemen, are you endorsing that this is something that you would like us to look into and do?
This is actually in response to what was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting
Gotcha.
on Monday. And I believe it was Ms. Blythe had a specific question about what are bonds and how do they work. So I think I had mentioned at that meeting that I had actually had a discussion with Mr. Sarpong, and so they had agreed to come up to do the presentation.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
I apologize, it's just a little warm in here, so I think everybody's mean mugging everybody else.
Okay. And I also wanted to mention that the city is not new to the bond process. We saw that back in 2000, 12, I believe, that the city issues some general obligation bonds for a project. And I think in 2017, there was another private placement that the city was a part of to raise some money for a project. So this is not anything new. It's just, if you're new to the process, I'm sure that you want to feel comfortable about moving forward with something of this magnitude.
Mr. President,
Ms. Blythe?
are municipal bonds, are they flat rate, or does the interest fluctuate, or does it depend on what you purchase over the 15, 20, 30-year period? Thank you.
Yes. Well, it could be all of the above. What we would recommend for any city is to have some type of level debt service where the payment is the same throughout. That way you would know you can budget for the debt service payments that you would have to pay until the bonds are paid off. So we would not recommend any type of floating or adjustable type of payment. It would be a level debt service payment.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions?
Well,
Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
thank you for your time also, and we left, Sam, I believe Sam gave you his cards. Are there any questions that you might have for us in the future? We would love to entertain those questions and answer them for you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zor?
I'm sorry, I changed my mind. I do have a question.
She does this a lot.
I'm just a little slow on the uptake sometimes. Can you give me like a 50,000-foot view of, like, how does let's say hypothetically, we do decide we want to get a $2 million bond. So can you just give me a rough idea of what that process looks like?
Yes, and it's explained somewhat here, yes, and I'll
Okay.
explain it. Well, first you would hire a firm like ours as the municipal advisor, and then we will help to determine which route you want to take it. There are a couple of routes. You can go competitive bid, where you have banks who are bidding, and we choose who gives the best interest rate, or we can go the negotiated route, which we will pick a bank and we'll negotiate the interest rate down as low as possible. And we would help the city to determine what we feel is the best avenue. Once that's determined, there are teams that we have to bring to be a part of this transaction. You have attorneys, bond counsel. They would have a role in the process. Also, you would have trustees that would be a part of the process. And all of us would come together and work on the transaction to get you to the point where you're actually receiving the money. Then we'll have a closing date, then you'll close. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWalt?
are your services determined on the amount of the loan or the bond that's taken out?
Yes, it's generally customary in our industry to charge a fee based on the issue amount. But what we do, we generally charge a minimum amount for a deal of this size. And we would disclose that amount based off of when we determine how much the loan is. But I wanted to mention also, which I think is very important, you can engage us as professionals, and we only get paid if the city, North College Hill, decides to move forward with a bond closing. If you say, hey, Larry, you've brought us all this information, we like it, but we're just not ready to move forward at this time, then that's totally your prerogative, and you don't owe us anything for what we've done. And that's typically how all financial advisors work in our industry.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. President?
Ms. Alexander?
Is it only banks that issue bonds, or are there investors? Is that the only option? How does that work? It's companies or outside
Right, so
sources?
the deal that I believe, and this is just my initial thoughts, I can't confirm this, but the 2017 bond issuance that the city did, I believe that was a private placement. And I say that because I didn't see it publicly on websites that show that it was something different. And a private placement is when the city decides to reach out to banks specifically, and the banks will bid on the deal, or you can choose a bank that you want to bid on the loan. That's one option. The second option is you go to the public offering markets, where you allow individuals, anybody can actually invest into this city, buy some municipal bonds, and that money is used to come up with the total amount of money that's given to the city. So I hope that answers your question. You got either
Yes.
banks or you have the public sector that can be involved in this type of transaction.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Ms. Dukestein?
depending on the lender, does that dictate specifications of what we can do with our bond?
That depends, and that's a question for legal counsel. That's why we bring the attorneys into the process. They will tell you specifically what you can and cannot do with these bonds, because there are certain legal guidelines that you have to follow when you issue these bonds. If you take that money and you put it into your general fund to pay staff or employees, then you lose your tax exempt status on the bond, which puts the bond in jeopardy of losing that, and that could cause other issues. So to answer your question, legal counsel will say, yes, you can use it for this, you can't use it for something, and it'll be spelled out in the bond documents. Did I answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Ms. Blythe?
what does EMMA stand for? I couldn't, EMMA?
Yeah, that's the site that's governed by our governing entity, MSRB, which is the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. They have an electronic site where you can go in, and that's how I got information on the city of North College Hill. You just type in the name, and it'll show you all of your previous debt that you've issued over the years. It's, do they give you the website on this? It's EMMA, E-M-M-A, and you can check.
Electronic what? Electronic municipal market. Is it there? I couldn't.
And if you Google search EMMA, E-M-M-A, you can go to that site and you'll see all of the previous transactions that the city has undertaken over the years.
All right, thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I would just like to point out that I only opened the box for everyone else to chime in. You're very welcome.
Mr. President,
Mr.
if I
Mosby?
could just maybe conclude on one thing, it would hopefully kind of cover a lot of different areas that have been some questions that were asked previously. So as Mr. Day said, we've had 2 previous experiences with bond issuances, and I will say since we've been here, because I suppose that there have been others, but since we've been in this building, there was one that was issued in 2012, and I believe that Mr. Wald had asked about this before, but that issue was a larger issue that that made improvements to this building, including the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and also provided for the public works structures that we have out in the back. And then, well, I think most people on council are aware that the one that we did in 2017, which was the private placement, was much smaller, but it was used to repair the roof on this half of the building. So that means that that basically we did one 10 years ago, and then we did another 5 years ago, and then we haven't really had any issuance of debt, since that particular time. So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWalt?
on that note, Mr. Mosby, that was for improvements for this building and the HVAC? Is that the one that's out now?
Yes.
So is it,
No, well, yes and no. Let me be more specific. The part of the HVAC improvements that were made were actually the smaller units that were put into these rooms. The one that you were saying is out, is actually part of the original HVAC unit for the entire school. So no, that was not included in the overall, because we still have the heater and the air conditioning system that were originally in here, installed.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Mosby? All right, we'll move on to the Law Director's report. Good evening, Mr. Dieters.
Good evening. I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Dieters? All right, next item on the agenda is Finance Director's Report. She is not with us this evening. So we'll move on to call of members, starting with Ms. Dukes-Dean.
Mr. President, I apologize. I remember what I wanted to say.
Go ahead, Ms.
I
Nichols.
could. I just wanted to remind everyone, if you did not, that today is the last day to file your ethics report,
Oh, thank you.
because I almost forgot.
That's a
last
good one to remember.
So, yeah, today, no, your ethics with the Ohio Ethics Board. Today is the last day. I understand that those fees can be really, really hefty if you don't pay someone. Is it $200 a day or something? I remember someone said. So today's midnight probably is your deadline. Not probably, it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think you have.
All right, now we will go to call of members. Ms. Dukes-Dean.
Nothing today.
Thank you. Ms. DeWald.
No report.
Thank you. Ms. Underwood.
I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Matt Shad, is that his name? And Clover Nook Center for the Blind for so graciously offering us a cool and air-conditioned place to meet throughout the summer months, so that we don't all run out of here screaming. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Ms. Alexander.
Nothing, Mr. President.
Ms. Zorb.
I have nothing, Mr. President.
Ms. Blythe.
Yes, I have a comment and a question for Mr. Mosby. It seems that I'm going to have the same problem that I had last year. About a week and a half ago, I placed an order online at North College Hill for tall grass, and I live on Lois, and the one-way street of Simpson, it is 3 foot tall. I just saw it this weekend. And I had the same problem where I noticed that the lawn, it never got mown unless I would place a work control order. And I mean, I've never seen it this tall. And I'm wondering, are they behind or what's going on? But it's 3 foot tall now.
I apologize. First of all, you had mentioned a one-way street off of Simpson, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure
Yeah,
what.
where the car wash is at Galbraith and Simpson, once you're going, I don't know, east from west, but if you continue on Simpson, where the car wash is on Galbraith, it becomes a one-way street. And that is city property, 10 foot in each side of Simpson, and that should be mown in a timely manner.
Are you talking about Mulberry? I'm not sure.
No. If you say you're on Simpson and you're right there at the light
Okay.
where Simpson dead ends into Galbraith,
Yes.
if you keep straight,
She's talking about the alley.
right, Simpson becomes a one-way street. And it's the same problem I had last year. It seems like it would never get mown until it was super tall, and then I had to actually put in a work control order online, and now it's 3 foot tall.
Okay. Well, I know that Mr. Fells had brought that one to my attention. So, I mean, I know that Mr. Eikens is aware of it. So I'll also talk to Mr. Cole, too.
Yeah, but it would just be nice to just have it mown on a, regular basis and not have to put in an order every time it gets tall. That's just my issue, and it happened all last spring and summer. All right, thank you.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to comment, I have really noticed that people have been slowing down with the traffic calming signs. We both live right by those signs, and whenever I turn left out of my neighborhood, I'm always like, oh, gotta slow down, don't speed up. It's a nice reminder for myself as well as everybody else, and I feel like people are kind of taking it seriously, which is nice. I also wanted to say thank you to Ms. Zorb, specifically, and all the people from the Tree City USA board for working so hard to get those pretty trees planted. I know that that takes a lot of work. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you to everybody on your team who came out and did that. You guys deserve a lot of praise and recognition for that, because that is not easy work to do, and you guys did it out of the kindness of your hearts. So thank you so much. And then I wanted to make sure we're talking the ethics financial disclosure statement. Okay, just making sure. I was like, oh, did that in March. Just wanted to make sure it was checked off my list. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us to remarks from the audience. I see no one here, so I assume no one is signed in. Mr. Hedger nods in the affirmative, or in the negative. All right, that'll take us to legislation. Mr. Hedger.
Second reading resolution number 12, 2022, a resolution authorizing the city administrator of the city of North College Hill, Ohio, to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Transit Infrastructure Fund programs and to execute contracts as required.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
this is a minor issue, but it was brought up at the last council meeting, and Mr. Hedger that was not able to attend, but there were a couple of grammar errors in the title. And again, I don't mind that, you know, on my hard copy, but when this gets to the website, would you, well, I don't know, maybe it should go back to Mr. Dieter's office for the corrections.
Which one was it?
Resolution 12.
I did correct the grammar spelling on the legislation, I believe, and on the readings as well, on the agenda.
Right, on the agenda, it's just that the copy we have.
Oh, the copy, yeah.
Yeah, so, and like I said, that's not important to me, as long as it's done right on the website.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Mr. Mosby, is this the piece of legislation that is time-sensitive?
Well, in this case, yes, we do have a deadline by which we need to file the grant application. So yes, you are correct. This is the supporting legislation that would be required for us to submit to let SORTA know that we are, you know, that we're willing to accept the grant money. So yes.
And what is the deadline, Mr. Mosby?
June the 30th, I believe, is the deadline for submitting the application.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
actually, I'm sorry. Can you come back to me in 1 second? I'm sorry. I just don't have it pulled up. Hold on. I can talk my way through the silence. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the third reading of resolution number 12, 2022.
Mr. President, I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Underwood, to suspend third reading for Resolution 12, 2022. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
Mr. Mosby, I just want to confirm that this is just for the grant, for us to receive grant funds, correct?
Yes. Yes.
We're not spending any money.
No, we're not. Not in this case. This legislation is for us. It authorizes us. In other words, long story short, as a legislative body, SORTA needs to know from council that you are willing to receive the funds in the form of a grant, and that's what this is.
Just makes you eligible to apply.
Okay.
Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Mr. President,
Ms. Anderson?
I'd like to move to adopt resolution 12, 2022.
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
I'll second that.
Motion for Ms. Anderson, second by Ms. Underwood, to adopt Resolution 12, 2022. Any discussion? Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Next piece of legislation, Mr. Hedger.
Second reading, ordinance number 4, 2022, an ordinance to authorize a supplemental payment to LaWanda Willis for finance manager duties.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move on to further remarks from the audience, and that has not changed. So we'll go to old business. Hearing no old business, we'll move to new business.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I actually have two items. First is, I would like to remind everyone, I believe, that this is our last meeting in this building. Mr. Mosby, will you be sending us any type of directions to know where we're going for the meeting in June?
Yeah, I certainly can, but again, I'll reiterate, it will be in the Proctor Center of the Clovernook Center for the Blind, so it is the building that is to the south of the main building. But yes.
It's a two-story building. I just don't know
It
what
is.
room I'm going to.
Well, when you come down, it'll be in the basement, and so as soon as you come in, you'll go to the right, and it'll be in there. But yes, I can make sure that we have directions to that.
And since Mr. Dieters is here, is there any type of Open Meetings Act kind of directions we need to do?
So we have to make sure we put it on our website that that's the location. And I would suggest maybe having a sign on the door when somebody walks in that go to the right down steps or something like that, whatever we need to do.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Was
Sorry,
that
number
both?
2.
You had
Yep.
two, that was two? Okay.
My second one is I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I'll second that.
Motion by Ms. Zorb, second by Ms. DeWald to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Underwood?
who will be in this executive session?
Ms. Zorb, who are we calling into executive session?
City council and our legal counsel. The city administrator and mayor can stay if they so desire.
Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukestein,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes.
Underwood,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe,
Regrettably, yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
It'll be quick, I promise.
Okay, we're going into executive session. All right, we'll bring this meeting back to order out of executive session. Any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I was wanting to address the subject of the last meeting in this building, and they said to put a sign on the door at the Clovernook home, but I think it might be advisable too to put signs on this door.
Great idea.
Well, thank you.
Great idea.
Mr. Hedger, did you
Just
get that?
to redirect them if they need to be. You know, the crowds. The crowds. It was a sarcastic comment.
No. My sarcastic comment was to him. That was
Ms.
just a
DeWald, are you
joke.
going to corral Mr. Hedger to make sure all those signs get made?
No, sir.
I expect glitter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's glitter.
about
It'll be
LED
on,
lights?
it'll be on gold paper.
All right, any other new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. DeWald?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Ms. Zorb?
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Ms. DeWald, second by Ms. Zorb to adjourn. Mr. Hedger, please call the roll.
Dukesteen,
Yes.
DeWald,
Yes?
Underwood,
Yes.
Anderson, or excuse me, Alexander,
Yes.
Zorb,
Yes.
Blythe,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.